Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Off Script with Pastor Jared. I'm here today with a special guest. His name is Shun Abram, but all the people that I've ever talked to, the first thing they ask is it Shun or is it Sean?
Well, it's both, a little bit of both. I answered to both. When I, just growing up, I heard both. So, but it's Shun. That's how I pronounce it, Shun.
S-H-U-N.
S-H-U-N.
Now,
yes,
how
sir.
often do you get Abrams with the S, like J.J.
Oh, man,
Abrams?
all the time. All the time. So, yeah. So, but it is Abram without the S.
If you see him around town, though, don't call him Sean Abrams. That's double wrong. Okay.
Right.
Well, I'm here today to chat with you, man, because you've been a longtime friend of Kirby Woods, a partner with us, and a lot of our members love you and know you. And so I just want to hear really about what God's been doing through your ministry from the beginning up till today, and a profile on you. And anyways, you can encourage anyone who listens to the podcast would be awesome. People always say hanging out with you is like getting a sermon for free.
Yeah, man, come on. I guess it's, yeah.
So start us off, if you wouldn't mind, just your testimony of what was your background. Did you grow up in a Christian home?
Right.
How did you come to Christ? Just give us the rundown on that, because that's always a great place to start.
Yeah, man, and I'll do that, but I don't want to miss this, just the importance of, man, I really do appreciate Kirby Woods, man, and just the role you guys played in our life, my family, and also our ministry in Binghampton has been greater than you know. Man, so it's truly a blessing to be a part of the family here at Kirby. We really do appreciate you guys. And man, yeah, I grew up in the church. My dad's a pastor. He's been, man, preaching for over 50-something years.
Where's he preach at?
He's with us now. So go ahead. Yeah, but the church I grew up in was New Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. That's where he, pastored, and I grew up in that church, and he pastored even before then.
Are you a Memphis kid? Did you grow up here?
No, I grew up in South Haven, Mississippi. So the Mid-South area.
Gotcha.
Because Mid-South Tri-State. So yeah, man. So right there on the state line is where I grew up, North Mississippi and South Haven. And but my dad pastored in South Memphis. So we used to travel from South Haven to South Memphis for our church on Sunday. So, but man, grew up in the church. Man, went to church every Sunday and every Wednesday. And back then, and it's not, I'm not that old, but still, back then we went to church all day. Man, we had Sunday school, we had regular service, we had afternoon service, we had evening service, we had late service, and then late service.
Now, did you have a lunch in between?
We did.
Power you through the whole
either
day?
McDonald's or something like that, something. But it was, I went to church all day, but the only thing was that I didn't have a relationship with God. Right. And then a lot of the, the younger people around my age, kind of the same way, man. We'll go to church on Sunday, and that's something, we did on Sunday. But Monday through Saturday, basically did anything we wanted to do. So which led me down a road where I remember when I turned 21, I said, God, I have no other way to go but up, because I hit rock bottom. That's what I felt. I was at the University of Memphis at the time, but that's when I truly surrendered my heart to follow Christ during that time. And it was kind of also during that time of the epidemic of what was going on with Oxycontin and hydrocodone. We didn't know a lot about what was going on then, about that, how addictive that was. So it was about 6 months stretch in there for me that I got caught up in that. And it just took me down the road of eventually redemption because of who Christ is. So I thank God for really rescuing me eternally, but then also just my life, and how he placed me on the road to, to have a wife now coming up on 20 years and 4 children. Could have been all wiped away, but God's grace, bro.
Yeah. That was there a particular, like a campus ministry that at the school that you hooked into, or was this just part of the church? What kind of drew you in once you were getting a little bit wayward? Okay,
man. Really, it was something. It was my dad asked me to come, and like he asked me to come to church on a Wednesday night. I'm trying to make this short as possible if I can, but it was my dad. He asked me to come to church on a Wednesday night, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna do that right now. He was like, hey, we're not gonna hold you long. So I was like, okay. So I hung up the phone, right? I was upset. I was like, man, I don't feel like going to church tonight, man. I don't feel like doing this right now. We got, blah, blah. And so I went to church, and during that church, we're reading what is called the church covenant. So the church covenant, and part of that church covenant says that I will abstain from the consumption of alcohol and the sale of it. Right?
Wow, that's an old school Baptist covenant.
That's an old school Baptist covenant. So they pass it around. So I got it. I read it. Blah blah blah. Yeah, signed it. I really wasn't paying attention basically. But on my way home, so I stopped to get a beer on the way home. So as I was going home, stopped to get the beer, I stopped at my brother's house, and man, I was halfway through this 24-ounce Budweiser that I had. It's not funny, but it is now. But it was like I was halfway through, man, and I didn't know at the time, but it was like a conviction that you just, and this is the funny part, you just made an agreement or an agreement to God, and you were in church. So, like it's different from being in church when you making it outside. But like I said, I said, I said, now where's said in the Bible that you can't drink? I ain't see that. I don't know where that is in the Bible.
You started cutting deals.
But man, I went to grab it again, and I was like, and I couldn't, right? And then I set it down. I was around 23, but at 21 is when I surrendered my heart. But I was kind of on the fence here and there, and but this was 23, and God just radically changed my heart. And so I was convicted, and I put it down. And I said, okay, I'm gonna go find out if the Bible says something about drinking. So the next day that I searched scripture, I was looking where the Bible says about you can't drink. The Bible said I said this at church.
You wanted to find
I was searching, man, and when you get the scripture, you kind of see you're trying to stay away from strong drinks. So you saw the warnings of it all. So I was reading that. And then also in how about making a vow and then not keeping that vow. But for me, I knew that God was directing my steps. And I remember standing in front of the liquor store for about 15 minutes, and I was like, man, do I go in? Do I not go in? Do I not go in? But I made the decision to turn. But when I made that decision to turn to God, he continued to radically change my life. And I know that there is some controversy over drinking, not drinking, and what that leads to, or drinking and not becoming drunken. So there is a lot of talk out there about it. But I know for me, what God was doing in my life and the addiction that I had before, that could be triggering into it all. So. Yeah, but that was kind of God. That was kind of trajectory.
So he used that. Yeah, he used that specific thing in your life.
Right. Because I say that because I know when right when I got baptized, the 21, I was like, God, I surrendered my heart to Him. I got baptized, that morning. That evening, we all went bowling, and I just felt the presence of the Holy Spirit of God, man, so strongly. And the family went bowling later on that night, and everybody was drinking, right? God was radically changing my life. So I was like, So I did, but it felt like, like a dimming of the Holy Spirit of God that was so powerfully that day in my life for about 2 years. It felt like that. So I don't know exactly what that was, but it was like a dimming of it.
Hey, be not drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit. Right?
So it was like God took me back to that point 2 years later, and it was like a conviction, which I didn't quite understand at the time, but God knows what He's doing. So.
Yeah, but later it was kind of fulfilled in that moment. You had to make the break.
Right.
I think God does that sometimes, where little moments that seem small, but they're like a microcosm of your life in the moment. So like that. What your whole life isn't a can of beer, know, but it was a microcosm of the direction you were going to go.
That's right.
And when you made the decision, it was like, we're going this way.
Right.
So I love to hear that. So from that point forward, was there a lot of radical growth and transformation? Did it sped up from there?
Oh yeah. People, my family, they thought I was crazy. Yeah, because it was radical, man. I mean, radical. I didn't know a lot about Scripture, but I knew that how real He is, which I didn't realize that at first, right? And then when I realized that, that when I go around people I respect, I just don't say anything. I just don't do anything because I respect who they are, right? It's just part of life. But when I realized that everywhere I go, God is there, really, for real. Mm-hmm. And that everything I said, He actually really heard me. And every thought that I had, that God is really there, man, it really, that's what it kind of froze me in such a way where I didn't do anything. I mean, Nothing at all. I didn't have a clue. All right. So I was, living in a space. It's like he just took me up out of the world, so to speak, placed me in him. Even though I didn't know a lot, it was him kind of protecting me. He put the fence around me until I had an opportunity to grow into maturity, to understand what it means to have a relationship with him and what I can do and what I can't do and what that means and all. So it was a maturing journey. A lot of things I learned on the way, right? Things I can do, I thought I couldn't do, or things I can't do. I thought, all that is just part of relationship with him, and a beautiful relationship. So yeah, I began to grow, dramatically from there. So
awesome. Well, how did you come to meet your wife during that time period? What's the story of how you guys got together?
Okay. Well, I met my wife in the 6th grade. She actually moved from Memphis down to South Haven because her sister saw someone. Her sister saw someone shot and killed in the parking lot of their school.
Wow.
So their dad moved them down to South Haven. I met her in the 6th grade. Man, we grew up together.
Really? Okay.
We began to date when we turned 18 years old. So I've been with my wife. So we're high school sweethearts. So we've been together over 25, but married 20.
Wow. So you were friends? Were you friends before you?
Oh yeah,
dated?
Yeah. We were friends. Yeah, we were friends.
Was
man.
there? Be honest. Was there a little flame there? Was there a little?
No, it really was. We were just friends, man.
Okay.
It was just that, and it's just all of a sudden, 18. So man, I thank God though. It was divinely given. And then, even through that process, because we were kind of living the same way, right? From 18 into, I surrendered my heart at 21, but most definitely at 23. But she saw the radical change. So, God had to do a work in her heart because of what he was doing in my heart. And then how he led me in that, she followed. And she surrendered her heart to follow Christ as well, because she thought she was a believer just like I thought growing up. But we weren't.
So how old were you when you got married? Do you remember?
23.
You were 23?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was part of that radical change.
I was going to say that's about that.
It was that same time.
All
yes,
part of the same story.
Yeah.
Great, man. Well, I love to hear that she came to the Lord too, and that a part of the. Yeah. So you guys are kind of wrapped up in each other's story. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So did you go to seminary for at any point? Tell me about how the call to ministry, and then maybe just sort of your training and how that was.
Yeah. So I right after college, I started working at youth villages working with young people who are either going through the system or have spent some time in the system because of unrest at home. So I started, there, and my God was just tugging at my heart to go to seminary, because I began to, share the gospel, and from there I was okay. God called me to preach. Right. I didn't know. Right. But I know he wanted me to share the gospel, and me sharing the gospel is preaching. So I'm trying to figure out. And and then he began to tug at my heart, since I am sharing the gospel. And I went on to, go ahead and preach. I felt that call to proclaim the gospel.
Now, what church were you at during that time?
I was at my dad's church, New Bethel.
Okay, so you went back to the Wednesday night church with the covenant?
Oh, yeah. I went back there, and I started helping with the youth there at the church. And we were going out door to door as well, sharing the gospel and all of that. And and I preached like my first official sermon on Father's Day of 2004.
Can you tell? I want to hear, as a preacher, I love to hear about the first sermon.
Right.
Tell me what you remember about the first sermon. Prepping it. How did you feel when you delivered it? Did you feel like you nailed it, or did you feel like if you could go back and erase that sermon, would you? As a preacher, I want to know.
I think it was divinely given, right?
Yeah.
I think it was the best that I could do, but God was doing through me. I felt just extremely tired for some reason once I finished, but I didn't. If I go back and look at it, of course, the layout and how you present it and all of that wasn't there, but I think the divine hand of God still used it, because it was John 3:16 that had an opportunity to preach, and I think people were they were helped. So
good.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, but I know God was just tugging at my heart to be able to deliver the word properly, and that's why I went to Mid America. So He was calling me to Mid America, so I went there. From it was 06 to 2011. I took the longer route.
See, I got there 2011, so I just missed you.
Oh man,
we just passed each other.
Yeah. So I went there, man. Learned. I appreciate my time there, and one of my favorite professors, Dr. Wilkes, man. He's passed.
Yeah.
But that was
Steve
my
Wilkes.
guy. He took me on my first mission trip and all. So I miss Steve. But yeah, man. So I learned there, and then I went on to teach at middle school for about 7 years.
Really?
I was still pastoring, but I taught at Collegiate School of Memphis, taught Bible there, history and with church history, biblical ethics, and Old and New Testament. So
wow,
taught that for about 7 years or so, and then went back, focused directly in Binghampton until about 2021 is how I began to work at Sin Relief. So
yeah. So give me the overview of the Binghampton part, because that's a calling. You know, I think a lot of folks hear that neighborhood, at least over here on our side of town, and think, you know, you'd have to be called to go there, because it can be a little scary at times.
Right,
to pass.
right.
So give us just how did you sense a calling to that neighborhood? The process of it was a church plant, right?
Right.
The process of planting the church and sort of how it's going today, and just give us the overview.
Okay. All right. Yeah, man. So I was in seminary at the time, and I was working at FedEx Ground, living in South Haven, and man, I was praying. God was just tugging at my heart to share the gospel more. I did a mission trip with Mid-America over to Arkansas, and we went door to door every day. And after that time sharing with them a week in Arkansas, I came back. I was like, why we don't do this every day? I didn't understand, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we just share the gospel every day? So
You were door to dooring over there?
yeah, door to door in Arkansas.
How do you feel about door to door? Because people don't do it anymore.
Yeah, man. I think when it comes down to it's a both and. I think especially when it comes down to making inroads into a community, all right, door to door is a way. All right. It is a way that you can specifically hit each door in your community. Now, understanding your community is good, and then how to reach each door. But I do believe that we're called, if we're in a certain location, we're called to each door. How do we reach it? That'll be up to the pastor and the team, and try to figure out ways to reach that door. But you're there for a reason. So I think it's a both hand. It's a direct way where you can systematically hit every door and at least attempt. Now, some may open the door, some may not. But it is an attempt to do that, and if they don't, then there's got to be a different way that you can make inroads into that home to the best of your ability, even if it's just prayer for that family and that family to turn. So I think it's a both and. I think it's a way to engage community, but of course not the only way. Okay. And I've learned we may not even just going door to door in Binghampton. We may not, even though we may not have a lot of people come back to our church because of door to door. But a lot of people in our community see our church as their church, even though they've never come before. It's still the community church. And I have people call me, even though they may not come back to the church, but to walk alongside this family, or they see me in the community. So it's like shepherding a community, basically, even though they don't come back to the church. But then also what it does, it grows people. Because when I start sharing the gospel door to door is one of the part of that same journey, that trajectory when I was 23. That's when I started sharing the gospel door to door. That really grew me. That helps to grow. If I have to learn how to share the gospel and then share with others, and then God is showing me and walking with me and teaching me. So it's a way to mature people. That's how God matured me, and that's how I've seen God mature a lot of other people that have gone door to door with me. Just to see God really move in the lives of yourself, and then also in the lives of the people that are there. Because there are some people that may reject you, but there are some people, man, they said, man, they just start crying because they need, because people are hurting. We know that. So people are hurting. So when they, hear the gospel, you're there for them, and then you begin that relationship. So it's a both and.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's some strong feelings on the door to door thing.
Right.
A lot of folks used to do it all the time, and it was just the way that you did evangelism. And so there's people that stand by it. And then there's some people that say absolutely not. Like it's, you're nothing more than a Jehovah's Witness to them. Or so I'm kind of encouraged to hear I love countercultural things. So I think that's like the boldness of it is just exciting to hear that there's still people willing to do it.
Yeah. And I think some people don't do it because of the rejection part of it, man. And, and then it's like how the pendulum swings from one side where, door to door was, the thing and everybody was going, and then you got some negative blowback. So it was a pendulum swing all the way over to the other side where, no, you stay away from that. It's going to ruin your witness.
Yeah.
But, and that's something we all have to wrestle with, even myself.
Yeah.
When it comes down to, okay, is it the rejection part of it, or am I going to walk in the call,
fear
or
of man? Yeah.
Of what's going on?
I think with the pendulum swing, you're absolutely right. And then once it swings all the way, I think that's where we are now, where it's like there's been a teaching of you have to be like best friends with someone in order to share the gospel with them.
Right.
You have to have built a long-term relationship in order to earn the right to share. I just don't think that's true.
Right.
And so I hope we're swinging back a little bit to where we can have the balance of both cold evangelism, what you're talking about,
Right.
and also just do build relationships with people at the same time. But anyway, I love to hear that.
But yeah, even and I'm gonna speak to one more thing, because it all goes back to a personal relationship with the King, right? Because there are some times where the relationship building part it would be more necessary in this instance. I think personal walk with God. There are some times when I first meet someone, I need to share the gospel. Then that's a personal walk with God. So as we walk with Him and He leads us daily in understanding of what we need to do, and that helps us to navigate it in such a way that we're trusting in Him. Because there have been some times where I've done it wrong on either side, because I was walking around, should I talk to this person? Should I talk to that person? Should I talk to that person? So I'm worried, am I doing the right thing at the right time, which throws me out of whack with, trusting the Lord with all your heart and leaning not to your own understanding. What throws me out of whack of, be anxious for nothing, but pray about everything. Let your request be made known unto me, So it was throwing me out. I was off, even though I was trying to do what's right, but I still was off because I'm walking around. Where should I talk? Oh, man, I should talk. I didn't talk to that one. I'm blah, blah, blah. But no, it's a resting in Him. All right. Being present with Him. He's present with you. All right. There will be opportunities that are there. All right. Be aware of that. And then there's opportunities that, you need to wait on, but it is a personal walk with the King.
Yeah. I think we do lean too much on strategies sometimes and trainings and the formula and the canned presentations and the do this X, Y, Z. I think you're right. A lot of times you miss the evangelism as an overflow of your spiritual state at the time. So you must be an evangelist at heart. Is that your gift? That is your gift.
Yeah. So So God, He's gifted, and it is a gifting of God. All right, it is a trusting in Him, and it's it is there, and but man, I know with COVID is kind of threw a lot of stuff for me. Kind of threw a whole different it's just something that's different. So it's like a recovery. And even now, even though we had a recovery in 2021, right, we recovered in ways, right, and we still are. I think we're still kind of recovering from that, especially on the evangelism side of everything. And but man, it is a resting and it's trusting in Him.
So you were the pastor of Binghampton Community Church. Binghampton.
Yeah.
I got to keep correcting myself because my wife grew up in Binghampton, New York. Right. Binghampton. And so how would you just characterize that time while you were there? What were some maybe like one or two top lessons you learned, and then maybe one or two, like hard things you had to go through? Anything? Give me a positive and a negative of that time.
Well, we moved by leading a guy from South Haven to Binghampton. So that was a time of trusting. We needed to trust the King. And that was after, like I said, we went that week long.
And did you feel you needed to live amongst the place where you served?
Yeah.
Is that part of it?
That was part of the call of God.
Okay.
Yeah, because like I said, once we did that week long mission trip in Arkansas, I was like, why don't we do this every day? So I was praying, God, what do you want me to do? I was at FedEx ground at the time. And but I was still sharing the gospel, going in and going out, and I prayed, and I left FedEx at that time. It's nothing wrong being bivocational. That's what I am right now. But at the time, that's the way I felt God was leading me. So I left FedEx, and a week and a half later, Germantown Baptist called me, and they were starting up a program to pay interns to go door to door and witness. And that's what I left FedEx for. Hey. I was praying, God, which way you want me to go? And He led me down that road. So I left FedEx, started going door to door to share the gospel.
Yeah.
And like I said, a week and a half later, Germantown called. And so my schedule was freed up to do exactly what God had already called me to do. And that's how I got linked up with Germantown.
Great.
And we start going all over the city. We'll blitz the area for 2 weeks, share the gospel, turn the local converts over to pastors in that area. So we're in North Memphis, South Memphis, Binghampton, Fraser, Southeast Memphis. So we went all over. And then about 6 months to that, they approached me about church planting. And we just saw the hand of God moving in Binghampton. So we decided to plant the church there. And once we decided to plant the church there, it's another tug in my heart that to live among the people, right? It goes back to a personal relationship with God. So I can understand how to reach the people there. And and that was the whole thing that God allowed me to trust him. I remember when I was praying, God basically let me know that, son, you'd be better off, you'd be safer in Binghampton in my will than outside of Binghampton in South Haven. Wow. Period. And that's just go back to personal relationship with and the conviction of the Holy Spirit of God. And so, I had a wife and a few kids and more on the way at that time, but it's still trusting in him. So we moved there. And once we moved there, I saw how God continued to transform my life. And then once we moved there, I saw my kids playing around like nothing happened. We just moved from South Haven to Binghampton, but see, they didn't know because my oldest at the time was 4, right? And I had a 3 and a 1, and then it was 1 on the way. But they were just running around happy because, for them, mom and dad was still there. So it's like nothing changed. So God pointed, that's one of the things I learned, that when it comes down to me being in the will of God and the presence of God, regardless of where I am, that his presence is what's bring peace. Because I can be outside of God's will with no peace, man. I can be in this location and be, just tormented in my thoughts and then all of that. So he granted peace in that time, that's right? Because I was in his will by his grace, of course. And then God began to change, continue to give me understanding of Binghampton, because even though it's a predominantly black community, I grew up in the suburbs of Memphis, which is South Haven, which is 30 minutes away. But the mindset was different from where I grew up, and then in Binghampton, it took me 10 years to learn the mindset.
Yeah,
of many, not all, but many people in Binghampton, to understand it. And a lot of times, when it comes down to poverty, and everyone in Binghampton is not in poverty, but we do have a lot. So how do I understand that mindset? It took me about that long. So now I got, and I'm still growing an understanding of it, and how to reach people. And true enough, my kids grew up, in Binghampton neighborhood. So there's a lot of things that they've seen and heard, and everything hasn't been, all cookie cutter. I'm telling you, it's been tough in many ways, but now I got a better understanding of what it means to hurt. I got a better understanding of what it means to, feel like you're not being heard. I got a better understanding of what it means to kind of be, go through generations of poverty, not one generation, but generations of it, or a mindset or a mentality. All right. So it's been too difficult in many ways, but through it all, the power of God has really shown me, that when it all boils down, it's Christ in you, period. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how fast you are. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care whatever you are, right? Life has a way of stripping all of that away, and what is left is Christ, and that's who stands. And as he stands, though, and I stand in him, that I can experience the glory of God. God's glory is so weighty and it's heavy, and it burns self off. Self can't take it. It can't carry the weight of God's glory. It can't, but Christ can. So in Christ, I see his glory, who he is and what he does. When I see him transform people that's been in, drugs for a very long time, or prostitution for a very long time, and they surrender and they follow Christ. I've seen that. I've seen God work in the hearts of people where, their situations have been, torn down, man. You really don't, you don't know how people function. All right. You just don't. It's like, but, still by God's grace, I've seen that. I've seen God's glory. I've seen his heart, how he changed my life. So I get to see who he is and what he does. And he inspires me daily to faith in him. Right. And then also how to continue to inspire others to understand who he is and to walk in faith in him, and to know that there's healing from the hurt that you feel, because hurting hurts, man. Hurting hurts. So there's healing. Right. And people places you in the lives of others as God continues to heal my heart to help heal others. And so I get to see the beauty of the journey. And like I said, it's not easy all the time. It is hard to process.
Well, church planting puts you right there in the middle of that with people where you live. And so you've been on the front lines of being able to minister to people. And, I like what you said. I've experienced a taste of it, completely different culture. But when we planted in Colorado a few years ago, one thing I struggled with at first was we did a lot of evangelism, and we did a lot of meeting with people. We did a lot of the groundwork. And a lot of times what happened was those people did not come to our church, and they did not. In fact, what they did often was we would witness to them. They would warm up to the church, and then they would go to the mega church next door and not to us. And I remembered kind of having in that time having to wrestle with that of for the kingdom rather than for me and for our church. Our church may not survive. Our church plant may not survive, but that's not what we're primarily called to do, is to make a church exist. It's to build God's kingdom, whichever way that looks. What's been, this is a theme we've been talking about as a church staff. I just want to get your thoughts on it before we go to the send relief part. But what's kind of been your view of how people have partnered with you, but also, like, have you experienced any territorialism from churches in the area? Like, have you run into churches saying like, hey, you're on our turf, or anything like that? Because we've been talking about that as I've come back. So I've served in Colorado, I've served in Texas, and now back in Memphis. I've noticed Memphis a bit more territorial in the approach to churches, how they relate to one another.
Right.
What's your experience been in that community?
Well, when I first moved there, yes, you can kind of, you have a sense of that just because of the mindset of the community, right? Or the mindset of just of culture, which is, I don't trust you, until, because I don't know you. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of, it is kind of street mindset. It's just basically like who you're supposed to be, right? Yep. So, and a lot of times people do, get over on people, and it's just part of it. So it's a standoff. It's just, how you going to come into our community? I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're teaching. I don't know what's going on. So it is there's a way of like, who you are, and even a way to try to protect the community, right? I've seen that. But then there are some times where people are saying, you're going to take all my members, which is the flip side of that, right? But that's, so I've seen that, and I understand that. So a lot of times when people kind of hear who you are, what you're doing in the community, those who are trying to protect community from any kind of falseness that's out there, then they begin to embrace to a certain level, to their best of their ability, to try to see how you can, reach the community together. And then the others, if their hearts are in the wrong place, of course, that divide is there. But so I've seen kind of both, even on both ends, of how they're trying to protect it, or they're just being territorial because of their members or whatever. I know Kirby's tried to be a support and partner to you. And you mentioned Germantown. I was curious if there was any churches that were like in your neighborhood that were like, hey, we love you. Thanks for being here. Let us come alongside you. Has it been like that, or has it been more churches outside wanting to pour into you? I say it's more churches outside, but we've had, good relationship with churches like Broad, there, First Baptist Broad. We've partnered with, a few things, and then a couple more churches that's in the area that we've partnered. So it hasn't been like a resistance type of deal.
Right.
But it hasn't been, we're glad that you're here. Right. It hasn't been that either, which it should be. I don't know. I may need to be, I need to take a bigger role in that, to be honest. But a lot of the nonprofits, though, because Binghampton, we have several nonprofits that are there. So we work hand in hand with a lot of those nonprofits in Binghampton, because our church may not have, personally, Binghampton Church may not have all the resources, right, that can help the needs of the community. But there are nonprofits that we partner with to try to meet those needs as we continue to walk alongside of people spiritually. So a lot of the nonprofits in the area that we work more, in tune with. But like I said, some of the churches like First Baptist Broad and Greater Pleasant Hill that's there that we've partnered with, and, a few more. So it hasn't been, just a resistance. So, but we've been there now 14 years. So it's
right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of a fixture at that point.
Being there. Those young guys who were 10 now are 24,
right?
Or when they were younger. So we kind of been there for a long time. That's why I thank God for it. But a lot of those guys know me. So even though some of those guys may be doing illegal activity, which I still try to reach and talk to, but they still respect what we're doing in the community in such a way where, we have opportunity to talk to those guys and, kind of direct them in the right, try to help direct in the right path. And a lot of those guys that, from the outside looking in may look like thugs to a lot of people. But to me, some of those guys, I've talked to, right? So their kids have been in my home, So, and it is life on life, because that's what I've learned. Even though we have programming at the church, in which we need that. And even once we get to Sin Relief, we want to have programming as well. But what I've learned, one of the things that grows, grows people to maturity, and then also helps generationally, is life on life, man. And that's what we want to try to continue to create, opportunities to have life on life with people.
Awesome. Well, let's go to the Send Relief Center. That's now your new role. You are the Send Relief man in Memphis. All in Memphis.
Send Relief, amen, amen.
I got to tour it myself. We came out and just did you were very gracious to give us a tour of the facility. I know our youth for their D Now project came out recently and worked there at the center, and so. Assume someone listening to the podcast doesn't have a big back knowledge of what it is. Give just a brief rundown of it and what it's there for. What do you do there? And what's the ultimate goal of it?
Okay. Yeah. So Sin Relief is a collaboration between the North American Mission Board and then also the International Mission Board. Came together to form Sin Relief, right, which is an international and national or global compassion ministry. And the 5 areas of compassion that we focus on is strengthen communities, care for refugees, protect children and families, fight human trafficking, and respond to crisis. So internationally, there are partnerships all over. We think about Ukraine or Afghanistan or any place of, civil unrest or whatever that it may be, disaster, any of those things. There's partnerships there internationally. Nationally, there are 20 ministry centers all over the country. And Memphis is one of those ministry centers, and I'm the director there. And so as we are continuing, and I came on June of 2021, we're right now and still in a state of renovation. We have 88,000 square feet of space that we're renovating, that we've had many teams like Kirby has come through. And so many churches all over our city and many churches from over the country are coming to help demo and renovate the space so that we can continue to display, the heart of Christ, in the lives of the people in Raleigh and our community, but also all over our city. And when you think about compassion, you think about the Good Samaritan, right? When you see someone's hurting, that you're moved with compassion to do something about it, right? So that's what we're doing, man. When it comes down to strengthening communities, we want to see how we can continue to partner in schools. We want to create a safe place for children to be. One of our partnering schools right now in Raleigh is Coleman Middle. So we've had some trauma training there. We've had some, when it comes down to it's the home fire campaign. So we had the home fire campaign to help with fire safety that's there. We had our person on staff who's trained in social work. She's on staff with us at Sin Relief. She's been over there working with the parents, helping them to understand resources. So, and then also we've done some work there at their school. So we're partnering and we're trying to create a safe place for kids to be as part of what we want to do to strengthen communities. Also with the ministry center, we want that to be a safe place for people to come. And even the same thing when it comes down to at-risk youth. That's why we're going to do it's a model that we want to have after school programming. And then also when you think about discipleship and then sports, that we're trying to create that safe place there for kids to be. So strengthen communities, so safe place in schools, safe place at the ministry center, and then also safe place in the homes, because we know what strengthen communities are families. So how can we bring families alongside of other families in the community, or small groups alongside other families in the communities, because that life on life, right, brings that generational change. To be able to walk alongside of that family. And in our churches, within the Mid-South Baptist Association, there are 170 churches, and we partner with other churches as well. But within our churches, you have doctors, you have lawyers, you have business people, right, that's in our churches. How can we walk alongside of these families in a Christ-centered way to see that generational change? Like I said, there's a young lady that she's not my daughter, but she's like my daughter. We grew up on the same, she grew up on our street. She was in our home. She was best friends with my daughters, she's right now at the University of Memphis. Right. And I texted her the other day, anything that, our family can do to continue to help walk alongside of her. See, that's generational change. So how can we create pathways as a ministry center for life on life to walk alongside these families over long periods of time? So we want to create those pathways. So how can we strengthen, families? So safe place in the schools, community center, and families. So strengthen communities. Also care for refugees, man. We're partnering with Refugee Memphis, and they work with families to resettle families and seeing how they can have families walk alongside of them. So Refugee Memphis. There's a human trafficking nonprofit in an area that we're looking at, and we're kind of walking through that process of how can we help when it comes down to human trafficking, man, because I've seen the stories. They in this nonprofit works with like 40 families like a year dealing with human trafficking. These are stories, man, that will break your heart. It's sad. It's sad, man. So how can we as a church display compassion to walk alongside of people that are hurting, right? So we're working through that, man. And even when it comes down to protecting children and families, we want to continue to partner with churches with that. When you think about foster care and adoption, do what we can to come alongside these families. And then eventually we'll get to the disaster relief part of what we're trying to do. So responding to crisis. So, man, we're working towards it. Like I said, God has laid it out. And
it's a massive project.
It's a massive project, man. So we're in renovations of it, but we're still doing work out in the community, even as we get the building properly up. Right. And so we're getting structure in place and all.
So what's for the longtime Memphis people, what church was this back in the day?
Okay, yes, thank you, man. So it was the old Raleigh Baptist.
Okay.
So it was Raleigh Baptist until about 2001, and then Greater Money moved into it. But then the Dwelling Place, Pastor Leon Jones right now is the pastor of the Dwelling Place Christian Church that's there, which is part of our Mid-South Baptist Association. Yeah, so they're there. So they're, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And the building had so many renovations going on. Like, right. So why was this place chosen, as far as you can tell, this spot, this building, why was this neighborhood? Is there a strategic reason why this was chosen?
Yeah, even though, because that decision was made before me, but I can see the divine hand of God and how he's working in it because of it is kind of centrally located concerning, even when I talk with the Refugee Memphis, Mark Morris is kind of over that. And he said it's like strategically placed in two communities that they're trying to reach. So I can see the hand of God there. When it comes down to Pastor Leon and just his heart for the city and partnering with him, you can see that, that was the right partnership. Pastor Leon, he's doing a great job over there in Raleigh. And just how it's, I think just the geographical location is set to how, as a launch pad to engage the entire city. Yep. So I've seen that. And then you have 88,000 square feet of space, which is massive. It's a huge area. But it's a way that we can have, because that's what we want the center to be. We want it to be an immersive experience for people to come. Because when you think about ministry centers, it is to engage community and continue to display the heart of Christ out into the community. But it is also a training pad for, what can I do when, say, if a homeless person come up to me, what's step one?
Right.
What's step two? Okay, what if a family with 7 kids come to me, but they don't have any place to stay tonight? What do we do? Mm-hmm. So it's like a training pad to help churches to be ministry centers, so to speak, even though a lot of churches are doing the work and they're out there, but it's also a collective effort to train. So we wanted to be an immersive experience for people to come and be a part of what's going on, but also a training ground to train and go to understand what it means to in those 5 focus areas, right? So we want a portion of our building to be able to explain that just the way we're laying it out, that people can come and learn. So it's going to be a learning center, but also a functioning where like I said, fighting human trafficking will be going on. People will be working, helping to do that, but they can also come and learn about ways to do that and how to even identify a person that's being trafficked. How do you identify that? Or when it comes down to even with trauma, how do you handle people when it comes down to the traumas that they face, and how do you approach? So it's like a learning thing. So So that space it lends itself to that, right?
So it's very multi-purpose.
Right.
Where it's kind of like a hybrid, a community center, because you want people from the community to to come, and now there's a gym in there, right?
Right.
You're working on for that.
Yeah.
And then you want a lot of nonprofits really officing out of there. You want people to be there on campus.
Right.
You want churches to come and use this as a training location.
Yes.
And then also, I think you want to house teams, like mission teams can come regionally and use this as like a hub, and maybe even store a place to store like disaster relief articles and things to help when a disaster does come, that this is the central location. So it's multifaceted.
Yeah, man, it's God-given, bro.
And a church meets there.
Right.
And do you actually, is that you go there during the day? Is that your spot?
Yeah, that's where we are. Yeah.
They have your little nest up top in the bell tower.
No, we still, even, man, because we're making it happen right now just because of the renovation. So we office wherever we need to be. So now, but there will be offices, man. We've been working on it. Like I said,
tell them to get you a bell tower. I want you up top pulling the cord, yelling sanctuary. If I don't see it,
oh man, come on. But no, it's really, man, it's been a beautiful journey, man. Like I said, it's tough in ways, of course, just because of the work, right? And
it's got to be the biggest project you've ever been a part of, because I can't even imagine when we walked through it.
Right.
I mean, you had it in your mind, like you can see it, and I'm amazed that like your brain hasn't melted with the scope of the vision of what's trying to be accomplished. It's juggling so much, and just people that haven't been there, you can't really understand until you go and see, and you should go and see what's being accomplished. But the renovations were incredible scope to get this building where you want it to be to function in the final phase of what you want. But then just all the things that are going to be accomplished is really amazing. And so to see it all come together, how far away do you guys think you are from full realization of the final vision?
Okay, well, let me speak to that first part first, just because, of course, it's by the glory of God, man. We are depending upon him, and it's by his gracious hand. Like I said, I don't care how smart you are, how fast, man, it will not. It won't work, man. It will not go. I don't care what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he can frustrate the plans.
I'm telling you, man, I don't care what you do, right? So it is a dependence upon him, and it's by his gracious hand that things can move forward. And then it's the team that I have around me, man, right? Because we got a project manager that's for the building, right? Sam, he's working diligently, even now, when it comes down to, making sure the building is where it needs to be when it needs to be. And you have, people at Sin Relief as well that's part of that procurement team that's working on that. So they're working on that. So, and when it comes down to Mary, my lovely wife, right? So she's the manager. She's making sure everything gets done that needs to get done when it needs to get done, because that's the kind of person she is. We have Kennard, is our journeyman. He's on staff. He's with us for about 2 years, man. He's working in the schools, right? And then we got Sonia, that's the trained social worker that's gathering all the resources and meeting with the parents and going to the schools. So she's doing all that. And then we have Kevin. Kevin is he raises his own funds to work, to work when it comes down to the ministry center and mobilizing, college and young adults all over our city to do missions. So it's a team. And then you got the association that are working. You got guys on staff that is pushing things towards the ministry center, because we see that as a hub to continue to help reach Memphis, to help churches take the next steps to advance the kingdom is what we're doing. So you have all these people around you. You got God above all, and then you got all these people around you, pushing things forward, which goes back to the gracious hand of God. Man, we're looking, when it comes down to phase, it's 1A, which is the gym and the disaster relief space. By God's grace, we'll be done with that by June. So please be in prayer.
Yeah.
So because we have someone who donated, $200,000 to do that floor here locally, man. That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
That's God's gracious hand, man.
Yeah.
Right. I was just walking, Right, and they said, "Hold up!" They start talking to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, What's going on?" They're like, "Hey, we got 200,000 to see because we want to see lives change, man. That's the beauty of what he's doing, and which we need it." All right, so hopefully by June we'll have that space done.
1A.
1A, yeah. 1A is what.
So we're in the beginning here. We're not at 4C. We're at 1A.
1A, brother. And then also even with what Sam is doing with the just with general contractors, because that's where we're going to have general contractors, we're going to have skilled laborers, and then we have volunteers working. So you have Sin Relief that's funding a lot, and then we have our local churches going to help fund. So it's a collaboration of all mobilization, because that's one of the main reasons why we're there, to help continue to mobilize. And man, so we're about, man, I'd say 6 months for that. So about 18 to, I would say, 2 years.
And that'll get you to phase, that'll get you to phase 2?
Or? No, that should be, by God's grace, that'll be phase, done.
Phase done? Okay.
Of course, it's always going to be improvements, but we're going to have.
That's when you're functioning.
Well, we're going to be functioning before then, but you're talking about completed. So, we'll have phase 1, like I said before June, and that's the gym area and that space. We want to get that done. But then you got offices, you got dormitories. That, I would say, about a year out. Okay. And then a space where hopefully we can have a place to support the nonprofit that's working with human trafficking by 2024. So that's by January. So that's another section.
Okay.
All right. So there will be,
that's not that bad.
It's functioning. So when you think about the church that's there, it's still functioning. The church is functioning now, right? It's serving people now. And then we're in the community, our team, we're serving people now. But when it comes down to the entire space truly, functioning, everything up without, future renovations, which is more than likely is going to be, it's about 18 months.
Okay.
2 years.
That's really not that bad.
It's not, man. So pray for us.
Man, with the gym floor, I remember when I visited the first time, it was still pre anything, and it was wavy. There was
so have you seen it since the floor's been ripped out?
No, I haven't.
Oh yeah, the floor's ripped out. So that's, man, you got to come back.
You could trip over the gym floor.
Yeah, because of the damage, man, the water damage, right, and the roof for a while. And then the HVAC for a while
but you guys got a new roof on there.
We got a whole new roof, man. A whole new HVAC system.
I remember you took me up on the roof. I climbed through the little hole, poke up there. It's all white up top. It's all white, and that kind of throws your eyes off. It's like you're in the middle of Siberia looking around.
Right.
It was really cool though, because that helps with the heat, I think.
Yeah, it reflects it. Yeah, man.
That's really cool. But man, that's exciting. And this is pretty much like your main project that you're working on these days.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a great thing, because everything you mentioned is something that your average church struggles to do. All those 5 points, or anything you said, whether it's homeless or adoption or trafficking or refugees. Most churches, they don't do those things well. It's like, how do we do these things? We outsource these things, or how do we? But to have a central place where we can all partner together, I think is awesome. And I would encourage anybody to go and see what's going on down there, because it's such a cool thing to see a transformation take place like this.
Yeah, man.
It's almost like a picture of what we hope happens in Memphis,
yes, sir.
Like a microcosm of what we want the city to be, that renewal and revitalization of what happens. So, I'm super excited for you, man. Are you still riding high?
Yeah, I'm encouraged, because like I said, it is a collective effort. It is the Memphis Ministry Center. There's been, churches all over Memphis, man, is really, taking ownership in our ministry center. It's ours. It's just the partnership, like I said, is with Sin Relief, which is partnered with International Mission Board, North American Mission Board, but the Sin Relief partnership is with the Mid-South Baptist Association.
Right.
So the association is our association of churches. That's the association.
Right.
So that it is our ministry center. And we have many churches that are, including you guys here at Kirby, man, that's really being a blessing to our city and for our ministry center as we continue to, work together. Because we're leaning on our churches all the time. even for the training part of it, there are things that our churches, they do well when it comes down to training, making people aware of those training. How can we help some of those churches who may not have those, may not have the opportunity for that training to be a part of that training? And even with the dormitories, like we said, that there may be churches within our city that may not have a gym, that may not have dormitories.
Yeah,
they can do
showers
they might not have that. They can do like D-nows. They can do D-nows there at our church at our ministry center because they don't have those things.
Yeah.
So how can we help, bolster the churches? Because it is our ministry center and all those things. So man, we're working together, bro.
So just as an example, these storms rolled through recently, tornadoes. So this would be the place where planning begins of how do we address all these places where the people's homes are knocked down and businesses and things. So the hope is that this relief center is the hub where, if you're living in Missouri or you're living in, Louisiana, and you say, we want to help with the homes that have been knocked down by these tornadoes, you can come to the Send Relief Center, stay in Memphis, and this is your hub to go and do that work.
That's right. As we partner with our local state, disaster relief, because that's a partnership as well. But we can be a hub, for people to stay and go out from here or go to Arkansas or whatever they need to be. This will be a place for people to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, man.
Well, man, I'm grateful for you. Any last things? Anything that you had on your list you want to talk about?
I think we covered it.
You writing any new books? you plug a new book or No,
I do want to say this. Like I said, though, it all goes back to the glory of God, man, and it is Christ in us. And I see it all throughout Scripture, man. That theme is Christ with us, or Christ in us, or the gracious hand of God upon us. It's period, man. It is Christ. So that He gives me the strength to do whatever I can do. Because if it was just up to me, I would have quit a long time ago. I don't have the power, man. I really don't. I don't have the stamina. I don't. Just as some of the stuff that I've seen and walked through, and the blows that you take, because when you walk alongside of people, you know what I'm talking about. You just can't do it. But it is Christ in us, man. They give us the joy as we renew our mind each and every day to see the beauty of who He is and allow us to walk with Him. It's through that relationship, man, that we can love the way He loves and overcome so many obstacles even levied against us, but still have His heart to love people properly. And I do fail at that sometimes. I still do. All right. But then I regroup. I go back to Him. He talks to me. He lets me know what's going on, right? Give me some understanding. He shows me power. And then He puts me back out there in such a way where I don't want to miss what He's doing, man. Same thing with people, man. As we walk with God, you don't want to miss what He's doing. So be a part of what He's doing.
Well, I would encourage our folks, whoever's listening to the podcast, whenever you get to a spot where you can pray for Shun and his family as they're going through this, especially with the Send Relief Center, all the things going on. But just pray for their family. A great opportunity as you listen to this podcast to lift them up in prayer and support. I'm praying that you get the spirit of Nehemiah to keep building those walls, baby. See, don't listen to Sanballat. Take it all the way. Take it all the way.
Yes.
It's exciting. Well, thanks a lot, man. We're glad you came by, and Kirby loves you. And you've always got a church family to come back and sit in with us and be a part of what we're doing here.
Man, thank you guys.
You're beloved at Kirby.
All, man. Hey, man. Same here, guys.
Thank you guys. This has been Shun Abram here on Off Script. Grateful to have him. So if you guys are in the area and looking for a church, it is Easter Sunday this coming Sunday. So would love to see you at Kirby Woods Baptist Church, 6325 Poplar. God bless. Have a good week.